This coming week's Parsha, Ki ha-mitzvah hazos asher anochi mitzavacho hayom lo nifneis hi mimcha lo rechoka hi. It's not covered over, it's not remote, it's not distant. This mitzvah. So some talk about it as the mitzvah of tshuva, others call it terekula. There are maforshim that indicate that even if it is tshuva, it's made to, it's structured as such to imply it means all of Torah we have a relationship to. So Rashi says that it's within us, it's connected to us, it's not remote, it's not distant. Rav Meir Simcha discusses the implications of this thesis. He presents that man was created, as Kohela says, the Rebbeinu Shem created him Yosha, he should be just, straight. There are certain intuitive recognitions. Behem Bikshun, man then disrupted, distorted, and changed what should have been the just and simple existence to connect to his creator. A creature that was created, imbued with certain awarenesses, certain sensitivities. You look around the world, you see this, the Chevel Savovus brings, that he reviews, Rav Meir Simcha as well, that which is most vital for man is most abundant. Air, water, a little less, but more urgent than bread. Bread takes a number of stages and phases. The water is more available. And so you see the design, implied in design is the design. As Avraham Avinu says, Avraham Avinu comes across a Bir Doleket, a palace which is beautifully lit, illuminated, number of shotim. Some of us have talked about this in the past, that Doleket can mean that the fire, which could be destructive, is contained, and it's warming, it's lighting. So you see that it was, somebody designed this, somebody put it together, contained the potential destruction, that it should be constructive, productive. Continues the Medrash, that there are implications for such ideas. It means that just as all this was designed, so the world is designed, so Avram comes to this recognition. Rav Meir Simcha says man is created with this awareness. And he compares the sense of sight to this core recognition of perceiving the world as having been a hospitable place for the creation of man. Accidental, you could say inductively, well, of course it had to be that way, otherwise we wouldn't be here. Surely, but we see that every stage seemed to have been prepared for us to be here. But the change comes when man begins to make the cheshbonos harbe. He seeks out excess rather than the minimum. That the real bracha in the Bria, Chazal teach us, is when the kima is misporech b'meyav. The eating less, indulging less in the physical universe. What we need. Even for simcha, even for einig, for yontif, Shabbos. But the excess is counterproductive. It's a slippery slope and leads to a malfunction of the root intuitions that we have. It creates distortions. Like Chazal say that the Gemara in Kedushin, that the Tana wakes up and he sees a world that he doesn't see animals that have to spend time learning crafts in order to gain their sustenance. Man has to go through stages, has to learn. Somehow, kipachti es parnasosi. The Rebbeinu Shem is showing us that it shouldn't have been that way ideally. Ideally, when man was created, and had we followed the program, ideally, we could have had this simple existence, and the Gashmias, the material world, would not be a mechitza, would not be a separation dividing us from our spirituality, from our... So he uses this sense of sight, as being symbolic, that the non-Jewish world has this too. Man is created with this awareness. Mankind is created with this awareness. And as mankind has this awareness, then the Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach align with a certain logic and intuition which is rooted in mankind. But when you're talking about Am Yisrael, that once things got off track, once they went awry, and once there were catastrophic results in history as a result of the Chet HaEgel, the Churban of the Bayis, the Churban Bayis Sheni, Churban Bayis Rishon, the things changed. The world changed. It already began to change with Odom HaRishon failing to deal with the root recognitions compounded again by Hevel and Cain murdering. So mankind now needs a corrective. Avram comes along and is going to introduce a certain new dimension. And that new dimension is going to create an eligibility for being a leadership, for being a model community for the world, and that's going to bring the world back to where it should be. There were moments in history at Sinai where it was posku zomosum. They reached and attained to a level that they were able to remove, to erase, to change that failure and reach a moment again of intuitive clarity that it's rooted, the sense that there is a design, there is a purpose, and that I have a place in this purpose and a contribution to make. Klal Yisrael, then from Sinai, posku zuomosam, there remains a reishim of that. They slip down, they make the egel, but something changes in Klal Yisrael's now mission statement. They do tshuva, the tshuva is accepted. Moshe Rabbeinu, after the expiation of the crime. But Klal Yisrael now are going to be, their excellence and their mission statement will be focused more on shmiya, on hearing. They're going to hear, the hearing is passed on from generation to generation. Hearing is something that its speech was what essentially differentiated man from the animal. Vayi Odom lenefesh chaya, the Onkelos, the Targum teaches that Vavasa Odom l'ruach memalo, he had power of speech. So to speak, to hear, there's no point in speaking without a listener, is now preparing man for the uniqueness of his mission. The Sheva Mitzvahs B'nai Noach, again, just perceiving the world. and seeing, had we not become makukul, mankind had not become perverted, distorted, as a receptor of this spirituality. And now we're going to need an emphasis on the hearing, the transmission, which was rooted in the original potential of mankind. This was man's mission to give ascendancy to spirituality, to govern, to direct the material universe. And so, Klal Yisrael comes upon the scene, and Klal Yisrael now is going to be a Mercedes, a passing from generation to generation, the koach, the awareness. Chassidei Umas Olam will have Olam Haba according to the Rambam. But a nation, an entire nation, an entire people to attain to these core awarenesses and bring them to light, to demonstrate them, to be a working laboratory that they can now show the world this connection of living justly. Klal Yisrael is going to carry this mission forward. Yechidim can come and surface from elsewhere. A nation will be Klal Yisrael. Will that nation have its defectors? Will that nation have its resurrectionists? Yeah. But Yechidim, by and large, there's going to be a continuous, without a break, Mesiras that is going to go from Avraham Avinu up till Sinai, from Sinai up till the Bias HaGoyel. And so, this mitzvah now is a mitzvah that tshuva defies all of the norms, how there can be such a phenomenon as tshuva. But the Rebbeinu Shem gives us this koyach. Klal Yisrael has been imbued with this koyach, koyachim b'peh. They have the ability to daven. They have Torah Sheba'al Peh, which is going to be this Mesiras, which will be passed on from generation to generation. It had to be a Torah Sheba'al Peh because it had to be protected and unique to this people that would treasure it and guard it so that it shouldn't be diluted as Torah Shebiksav has suffered that, and was already anticipated by the Medrash that when Moshe Rabbeinu asked to write down Torah Sheba'al Peh, the Rebbeinu Shem said no, because Torah Shebiksav, the non-Jewish world will access. Torah Sheba'al Peh has to remain the monopoly, the international cartel of Klal Yisrael. And so, it is amazing that when we come to Rosh Hashanah, and we're going to have a moment of coronating a Kodesh Baruch Hu. The Rebbeinu Shem needs my coronation? Of course not. But I need the exercise of going through that coronation in order to put things into perspective. That moment, there's tefillah, there's limud Torah up till then, there's tefillah up till then, and then from that point, there's the moment, the peak moment, it's Tekiyah Shofar, there's a mitzvah of Shofar. It is a Tzomah Darsheni. Why at that moment don't I have words? Why am I? It's the Mesiras. And what do I mean? Asheom Yoidei Surah. No shortage of people that can sound similar sounds. But the halachic requirements and precise calibration of the nuances of how to blow the shofar, which shofar, and the shofar then is that exquisite moment that is an admission that we don't have words at times, that there are things that beyond the words that even we have, Klal Yisrael has, in Torah Shebal Peh. But it also corresponds, says the Shem Mishmuel, to, he asks the question, isn't there something lacking here in Tekiyah Shofar, that the mitzvahs hayom always reflect historically, true, as the Derech Hashem says, that we're always coming back to a moment that, and we're revisiting it, not just commemorating the past, but there is some symbolic connection. Where does shofar fit in with the Yom Adin? Says the Shem Shmuel, it corresponds to that breath that was injected by the Rebbeinu Shalom into the nostrils of Odom Arishon. That breath that we inject into the shofar, that's the koyach of ruach memalalo, and therefore all of the minutiae of the details of the specifics of Tekiyah, Tchua, Tekiyah, Shvorim are Torah Shebal Peh, then are going to be a reflection of Ashrei Om Yoidei Surah. There's a uniqueness. Only through Torah Shebal Peh can we shape and deliver this unique moment that corresponds to that moment when man was created, and from then, he then had his responsibility, his challenge, which we go through history, how to reflect being a creature of that creator, that moment of coronation. Meir Simcha takes it one step further. He says, the mitzvahs that we have, Klal Yisrael now has. The world, Sheva mitzvahs b'nei Noach, reasonable, a straight line, shortest distance between 2 points. There is a world, it's illuminated, it's well appointed, that which I need most is provided for me. Yes, it's there. It's there to correspond axiomatically with all of the intuitions that a human being has before he distorts his antenna and then finds it hard to receive the message. And then Klal Yisrael, now, that's riyadik, that's perceiving the universe and understanding its connections, the pieces of the puzzle as they network. The next step, Klal Yisrael, now post Ma'amad Har Sinai, it was poskum b'zum awesome. They slipped and fell with luchas shniyas, not luchas rishonos, and it's through Torah Shebal Peh, and there's a challenge in removing the static to get the clarity and the access to reestablish. But now, our relationship. But now it's going to be Klal Yisrael with each other. Diktur Chaverim. Now it's in a world that's post-Alvus. Post-Alvus means that there is this nation, this unit that was, the Torah was given to a nation. And this tzibur, this nation that was given the Torah, they then, in turn, now carry it one step further. Tzitzis, tefillin, those are manifestations, just like a beloved wants to put the name of his beloved on his garment, on some remnant of his, when he's separated, to remain connected, to be reminded. It's an expression of love. He must express that relationship some way to have something symbolic. That is the outer expression of the lover to the beloved, as the tefillin, tzitzis. Klal Yisrael have now internalized that, just like the Sheva mitzvahs, B'nai Noach, are rooted in a basic consciousness of a rational perception of someone who has not distorted his spiritual antenna. Similarly, now Klal Yisrael, post-Sinai, have this relationship to Torah, to mitzvahs, and they then are now required, expected, and predicted to carry this message through the Deiros and bring it to its climax, to be as Hagel. So when we prepare for the Shofar, it's a moment of utter and total subjugation. We're subordinating ourselves to the recognition that we're creatures created by this Creator. But we've been given the power and the tools to do what has to be done. We mentioned the posuk that Ezra calms the illiterate Jews from Bovel who didn't know it was Rosh Hashanah, and they start to cry, and he says, no, don't cry. Ki chedvas Hashem hi mu'uzchem. Your joy, eat yontifdik, behave yontifdik. Does that mean not to be serious, not to recognize you're going to din? Yeah, but you have to have a certain level of enthusiasm and optimism to be eligible to make it through the din. And that you need a certain amount of simcha. And the Malbim says that chedva is that kind of simcha that grapples with despondency and triumphs and wins. Could there be cause for depression, for sadness? Surely. Going to din. But there's another way to look at it. The way to look at it is the Rebbeinu Shem has given me a mitzvah of Tkiyas Shofar. The Rebbeinu Shem has given me a Torah Shebal Peh, that I'm part of Ashrei Om Yoidei Surah. The Makri will be very, very exact, very surgical, very precise. Were those tkiyas exactly the right length, the right sound, the right sequence? Yes, we have the kelim, we have the tools. The tools, and that's, says Reb Meir Simcha, what Ben Azai means when Ben Azai says that the Yerushalmi in Nedorim, that Ben Azai says that Zeh Sefer Toldos HaOdom, this is Klal Godel. This is the Klal Godel. Rabbi Kiva says, "V'ahavta orecha kamocha." Zeh Sefer Kol Kol. Mimenu, from within, this story of creation of man, the story of the creation of man. Zeh Sefer told us Ha'odam, from within man himself, our intuitive recognitions of root truths. And the Jew now, not just the recognition, yes, Sheva Mitzvahs B'nei Noach, the Noahide code, the minimum that a rational, honest person would come to, should come to, does come to. Chassidim U'So'ilim have achieved that. But now an entire nation has internalized that I have a connection to tefillin. I have a connection to tzitzis. I have a connection to those emblems that will give me the expression. And now Tkiyah Shofar and the mitzvah of tshuva, that ha-mitzvah hazos, this mitzvah of tshuva is the key, the mafteach for Kol HaTorah Kula, that I have that root recognition and connection. Yeshuas, Refuas, Ksivach Simeteva, good to everybody.